This is season 10 of The Great Indoors, and we're coming to you again from MWC 2025 here in sunny Barcelona, where the future of telecom, media, and technology is unfolding in real time. In this episode, we bring you two powerful perspectives from industry leaders at the heart of AI transformation from Google Cloud and Technology Business Research, TBR. So welcome to Season 10 of The Great Indoors, where we continue to explore cutting-edge innovations shaping the world of connectivity, technology, and customer experience, all through the unique lens of human impact and meaningful change. I'm your host, Matthew Roberts, and as ever, I'm joined by the one and only producer extraordinaire, Supremo, Larissa Yee. So joining us first today is Anil Jain. Now, he's the Global Managing Director for Strategic Consumer Industries at Google Cloud. And along with Amdocs' co-host today, Sgan-Cohen, I think we're going to have a great conversation. Now, Anil leads the company's global go-to-market strategy across telecom, media, and entertainment, retail, and consumer packaged goods. And with a background rooted in data, cloud, and AI transformation, Anil brings a powerful perspective on how organizations can unlock business value by combining deep industry expertise with cutting-edge technology. Then, we'll be joined by my good friend Chris Antlitz, Principal Analyst at Technology Business Research, TBR. Now, we've spoken to Chris on this podcast many times, and he spent 15 years analyzing the global communications landscape with a focus on telecoms, hyperscaler strategy, and emerging technologies like AI, automation, and 5G. Known for his sharp analysis and trend forecasting, Chris brings depth and clarity to the fast-moving developments we're seeing across the industry. So in this episode, we'll explore the rise of agentic AI, the growing importance of partnerships to Amdocs like Google Cloud, and how AI is moving from buzzword to business reality. We also dive into the global momentum behind FWA, which is fixed wireless access, and the re-emergence of AR and VR as the next major device category. Okay, so this is a conversation about much more than technology. It's about the next chapter of human-machine collaboration. So buckle up as we get started. Okay, so welcome back to The Great Indoors, MWC 2025. It's day two already, and we're kicking off the day with a fantastic guest, Mr. Anil Jain from Google.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm also joined from Amdocs by Mr. Sgan-Cohen. Roy, welcome to The Great Indoors.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. So let's kick it off. How's everybody feeling now on day two?
Well, day one kind of felt like it was a week long. So
let's call it week two. How's everyone feeling week two?
No, it's great. Yeah. Energized.
Awesome. And Anil, if you could, just give us a bit of your background, your history, and your role at Google.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So my name is Anil Jain. I'm the Global Managing Director for Strategic Consumer Industries at Google Cloud, and that spans verticals including telecommunications, media and entertainment, games, retail, and consumer packaged goods. And my responsibility at Google Cloud and my team's responsibility is to be the central kind of corporate global go-to-market team that defines what the strategy is for how we're going to drive transformation in those industries with the power of cloud, data, and AI. And I joined Cloud in January of 2019, initially to build the media and entertainment vertical, and now for the last couple of years, I have a wider remit.
Okay, great. And I will say you've got a fantastic booth in the hall next door.
Oh, thank you very much.
Booth is,
we're really happy with it.
Really impressive. So let's get into the collaboration with Google Cloud and Amdocs. And maybe Roy, maybe you want to kick off on the importance of the collaboration and what it's bringing to all our customers in the industry.
Sure. So in general, we see all of the customers are going into the agentic AI, meaning they are moving into a more composite AI systems, and they are moving from use cases that are more knowledge-based that we got used to in the last year, like Q&A and document management and use cases like this, into more complex use cases. And they are looking both at the use cases itself and also to achieve the automation as part of these use cases. As a part of this, and the part of moving to agentic, we know that there are the look of how we are implementing AI is changing. And you are basing more and more on the reasoning elements that the AI is now starting to approach. For achieving accuracy and for achieving the KPIs that the telcos needs to have, they need to basically combine between an AI and data platforms, which we are working together with Google to achieve it, and to inject inside the knowledge coming from the specific industry, in our case, the telco industry. So we are combining together the Amaze platform, the agents, telco agents that we are bringing into care and marketing and sales and the other aspects of the telco, together with Google's AI cloud platform and the data toolset that Google provides. Together we can provide the ultimate or the right solution for the telco.
Perfect. From your perspective, Anil, some of the most important aspects of the collaboration, what is each side bringing that makes us stronger than our individual parts?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll just say that I think this is the momentum is building on a beautiful partnership in this industry. And I think for all the guests, it's important to emphasize something that I think a lot of people already know. But if you think about the telecom industry, I can think of very few other industries that have this amassed amount of data, right? Tens of millions of transactions across hundreds of millions of subscribers on networks every day, all day long. And that data, both real-time data, lots of unstructured data, as well as structured data across subscriber information, network performance, billing, and then internally within the telecom company on the back end as well. All of that operational and consumer data together is providing kind of a treasure trove.
The fuel.
Well, it's I think under-leveraged today, right? There's so much potential in that data. And so part of what Roy's talking about is coming together, we're starting to empower telecom companies to actually unlock the value of that data and put it to use more than, and yes, I think in 23 and part of 24, a lot of it was being able to have conversational interfaces and get analysis done and find information, which was super useful. But now the productivity will be 10x or 100x based on going from question and answer, knowledge acquisition to reasoning and decision making and execution of tasks, right? And that automation will not only optimize kind of operations, but also I think lead ultimately to better consumer experiences. So, but to answer part of your question, I think that the power of Google Cloud and our leadership in AI overall as an AI first company for the last decade with our Vertex AI platform and all of the capabilities with Gemini, combined with all the innovation that Amdocs is bringing to the market, I think is a 1 + 1 = 3 or 4 type of partnership, because you have the deep domain knowledge and established footprint of what Amdocs has been doing for years in the telecom industry, combined with our leadership in AI on the cloud. And so I think it's a beautiful partnership, and I think we're just seeing the start with some initial adoption. And there's much more to come.
I tell you jogged my memory then going back a few years, and Roy will remember this. I used to look after marketing, the big data marketing team at Amdocs, and we talked about data and data and data and data. And I always remember being at any show anywhere in the world, and they'd say, yeah, but what's the killer use case? Right. And I think it's true to say that what we're seeing now, not just with generative AI, but AI has been around before OpenAI and ChatGPT, but particularly with Google. We're now seeing those killer use cases come to fruition, right? It's now here at last in many respects.
I think we are able to define the KPIs that we want to meet, the different aspects that we are injecting AI into, and we see that we are able to starting to achieve them in a way that we can measure them and show the ROI.
Exactly.
For example, when we're talking about care use cases or self-service use cases, we see that when the customer measures by himself the average handling time, the first call resolution, other KPIs, we are targeted to reach improvement on these KPIs with the AI, with machine learning, classic machine learning, traditional one, and AI and Gen AI activities. And we see that gradually we are meeting these KPIs,
which is really, it's a real demonstrable, tangible benefits that we're seeing coming through now. And I think the other thing that's really interesting this year, more than ever, is partnerships. Again, it was a term that has been talked about. Everyone needs to partner. There needs to be an ecosystem. But now the partnerships are more solidified, more prevalent, and on everybody's booth, people are partnering. Do you feel that ethos in the industry?
I do. But I think it's a natural course of business. And the reality is, and I do want to comment on the big data point from earlier.
Okay.
But I think the reality is, the way we look at it from Google Cloud is we are a global infrastructure and platform business ultimately, right? And the way a platform business thrives is you have a rich partner ecosystem that builds on top of that platform. Yeah. And that's where you create incredible value. And we always think about it with the customer kind of at the center of what we do. So ultimately, this is not about speeds and feeds and even volumes of data, even though those are huge and very important components. It is really about what is the business impact, what is the business value that we're delivering through all of the technology that we're building, including data and AI. And the point that I want to make about your original question about big data is, you're right, there was a lot of big data, massive volumes, a lot, and it was real because I think the people that understood what the importance of that was what was coming was being able to unlock insights and also apply machine learning models well before generative AI to data sets, but it was inaccessible to most, right? You needed data scientists, you needed people that had the tools and the understanding to make sense of the data.
And that was the profession. They said, everybody, you need to be a data scientist. And that's where you're going to,
But now what has happened, and I think this is the really key point, is we've democratized that access and the power of what's possible and put it in the hands of everybody. So now we've changed the entire accessibility and the interface through which all of us can unlock the potential of that data. And then now you've gone beyond that down the ability to actually generate content based on the data. And then to what Roy was saying, being able to employ agentic AI to actually execute. And I think this is game changing for every industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now let's talk about video, because we talked about video there before. And I love the topic of video. So I think it's fair to say the last 10 years were shaped by the disruption of video distribution.
Correct, yeah.
The next 10 years are going to be shaped by the disruption of video creation, right? What are your thoughts, Anil, on what's happening and how AI is going to reshape that space?
Yeah, I think this is near and dear to my heart as someone who's spent the last 15 plus years in media and entertainment technology. I think that you're absolutely right. We used to, our mission for media and entertainment in Google Cloud was helping media organizations transform audience experiences, because the shift to direct to consumer as a paradigm upended the entire value chain.
Yeah.
But that was very much distribution that then led back into content creation, production, and management. Now with generative AI, the actual creation of content is changing.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at any study out there, I think media and entertainment is one of the top few industries that are going to be very disrupted by generative AI.
Yeah.
And I think it's happening right now in front of our eyes in many different ways. And if you have to think about the convergence of multiple different trends. So it's not just generative AI and every week the improvement in multimodal content generation and video production, but also the use of models, generative AI models, in tools for post-production, editing, outpainting, all of these things that compress the time, right? Or can take an asset and turn it into multiple formats, right?
Yeah.
But this converges with, I think, another massive trend that's been going on, which is the rise of the creator economy that has doubled year over year in terms of the amount of content, the adoption of content. And if you think about what you view on a daily basis, it's no longer constrained to the previous formats, right? It's on whatever platforms, short form content. It could be created using a Pixel or an iPhone, and it's still garnering a lot of audience engagement. So the entire nature of what it means to be a media company, I think, is changing. And the best way, I think, to characterize it is, I tell my team this, we've had this dialogue, is that if we were to go and start a media company today, would it look anything like any of the traditional media companies that we work with today? And the answer is no. You would never do it, right? So to me, that is an epitome of this notion that AI is going to bring about the reshaping of industries. And I think we're going to see that certainly in media and entertainment, but we're seeing it in every industry.
So we had Doug Shapiro from BCG, and I don't know if
Doug's a good friend, yeah.
So he pointed out to me that YouTube is the number one place for content on any screen, TV now or anything. And the amount of hours on YouTube by the creator economy is 15 million hours a year.
So when I was talking about the creator economy, I was thinking about one of his essays that he published a couple months ago, which really called this specific thing out. And I think he
says if 0.01% of the creator economy is comparable to what comes out of Hollywood, then it doubles Hollywood's production in a year.
Yeah.
And that's the disruption.
That is the disruption. And it's only growing.
Right?
It's the place where you see the greatest amount of growth. Right? Not constrained to large budgets and studio facilities and all of the incredible infrastructure and organizational burden that you bear, but you can create a piece of engaging content that my 14-year-old and my 20-year-old are going to enjoy. And even myself, I will enjoy. And in the 24 hours I have in a day, I'm spending less of that time on traditional media.
Which I think is mind-blowing. When we talk about disruption, Hollywood's, this is why they were on strike as well. They have a big problem, right?
But I think this is, the reality is, and we're kind of all of the same vintage, if you will, here, right? And so we have lived through many technological step changes. And if you look at any of those, they've brought about entire new ways of doing things. I think what we're all feeling and seeing right now is that with AI, and especially generative AI, because of the democratization of the power of sophisticated capabilities that were previously limited to the few, right? Whether that is in media creation and production or financial research and analysis or in any number of areas where it took a deep knowledge worker's skill set and education and professional tool set, you're now democratizing that capability, right? So what we're seeing is in a very small amount of time, a short amount of time, we have changed the nature of what is possible for people to do. And that will change the way people work and how organizations are designed. And so we might be living through this period where in the coming years, the nature of what a company looks like, how it's organized, what the management model is, what the business models are, how talent is acquired and retained, all of this will change. And I think we're just scratching the surface right now.
And it leads me to when we come to this show every year, and then there's a few big talking points that come out, right? And it was last year that generative AI, people were really talking about it seriously. And again, like you said, we've all been in this industry for a while. But as far as you're concerned, I'll ask this question to both of you, Roy. Is this the biggest technological leap we've taken in the last? I don't know what time frame. Certainly in my career. It feels like
so. We are saying since the internet, right? The internet was a huge.
People always, use the internet as that.
But it has the potential to be in my view, it has the potential to be the greatest leap. And to what Anil said, we see this change of mindset and change of the way that you are working in productions, for example. We see it here, by the way, in the booth, because everything that produced here was produced by Gen AI, different than we used to produce content before. We see it on the development organization. The way that you are thinking as a developer, as an architect, is changing. It's no longer the same, and we are practicing the people to act differently. So we see it on every. I see my kids, right? My kids are studying. The schools haven't changed. They're not adapted to Gen AI yet. But the kids themselves, they are learning differently, right? They're doing their homework in a different manner.
But I think that's such an important and profound point you made there, Roy. It's not just the technology coming along and changing and disrupting everything. The way that we are thinking then, our approach to anything is changing. It's not like, that's going to write everything for me now. but the way I'm going to use it to help me, right? It's the mindset that I think is creeping into it.
I think Roy touched on a really important point that maybe in business we don't talk about a lot, but I think the reality of being in the technology business is that we're all very much aware that you have to have a high tolerance to change because change is constant, but you also have to be constantly learning and growing. And the reality is, we know the studies have shown people learn very, very differently, right? So one of the things that's really amazing, you mentioned your kids, right? I think that when you have children or you're in a family, you see how everyone kind of absorbs and acquires information differently.
Yeah.
And so there's this notion of kind of adaptive learning, of changing the way the information is consumed or presented to you, what the interactive model might be or the interaction model might be that will affect how well you obtain new information, knowledge, and skills. And I think generative AI is a brilliant way that's going to change how all of us continuously learn, right? And so we at Google Cloud, one of the products that was very well received by the world last year was Notebook LM.
Right.
And so Notebook LM is just this amazing product where, when we launched it at Google I/O, the demonstration that my colleague Josh Woodward showed was taking Notebook LM and saying, look, my son is learning physics. Physics is a bit of a hard concept, but he loves basketball.
Right.
So took content in from the physics textbooks or from the web and gave the instruction via a prompt to Notebook LM to create a podcast teaching physics using basketball.
All right.
And in seconds,
I love
this two-person conversational podcast was created right in front of everybody.
Yeah.
That was teaching basketball or physics via basketball, and it was mind-blowing, right?
Wow.
And we use it internally all the time now. So we've written for each of my industries long, dense strategy documents, which that all the stakeholders, though you want them to, will never fully read because there's no time. But instead, you stick it into Notebook LM, and now you have a podcast created on what is Google Cloud strategy for telecom, right?
Yeah.
And a Q&A that you can have interactively with Notebook LM to ask questions on what is our strategy with respect to the partnership with Amdocs, right? And internally, we can get all this in. So it's changing the nature of how we learn, how we access information. And I think it's going to change the nature of what we can actually do and how fast we can move in the industry.
And it's great. And I think both of you there, when we talk about this and we talk about thinking differently and using it, we always talk about our kids.
Of course, yeah.
All right. I think that's the other thing. Whenever we'd come to a show and we'd have a new technology, the last people we would ever think about using it would be our kids, right? to most degrees. But we think like that. And how are the benefits societally? How are the benefits to all demographic cohorts, if you will? But let's touch on something. What are the potential ethical questions that we need to be asking ourselves right now with the adoption of this? And Roy, maybe we'll start with your thoughts on that.
I think there are many, many ethical questions. First of all, we talked about the video. It's the fake news.
Right.
Talking about the kids, history today is done in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Fixing explaining the history takes more than 30 seconds. So fake news is a very big phenomenon that we see today. And the ability to create very persuasive content is a big ethical risk that we for sure need to manage.
Yeah, because we spoke with Charles Eisenstein about this. And he said, well, if there's always a doubt in any content that you see about its veracity, then we're going back to a time where the only things you really believe are from human beings. If you trust that human being. Right. And he's a philosopher and he's a little bit out there but to me that was quite a profound part of that. What do you think, Anil? What sort of things are you not necessarily questioning, but you're cognizant of right now?
I think you're right that we always think about our children when it comes to this because that's the future that they're inheriting. So I agree with Roy. I think misinformation and to make it very hard to distinguish what's real and what's fake, what's contrived is a challenge. And so I think provenance and understanding what's true is a huge area. We're working on that as well at Google with SynthID and a number of other approaches. But I think like worldwide, there needs to be a new paradigm of how we understand the veracity of information. I think intellectual property rights is another big area, which will be, if you're in cybersecurity or you're a lawyer working on AI, you have a job for life. Right? I mean, that's going to go on forever, right? So I think those, and that'll vary by region and country, just like copyright law and patent law.
Yeah.
I think those are two fundamental things. I also think because of the power of AI and the ability for AI agents and algorithms to acquire lots of information, if organizations aren't careful, their information may be more accessible than they think. And that could lead to unethical behavior. It could be unintentional, right? But it could happen. So I think a lot of things will change. And to your point about, has there been a bigger technological change? And I think this is the biggest one. I think the internet, of course, was huge, but we kind of grew up in college with the internet forward, right? And it's just, our children are born into a world where they take it for granted. Exactly. It exists, right?
Yeah.
Just like mobile phones. This has always been there. But it hasn't.
Yeah.
I think AI is even more profound because it would not exist but for big data, cloud, the internet, virtualization, all of these amazing things, because you couldn't even do the research, right? But I think that what it's doing is, and I said this, I think earlier, or alluded to it, I think we haven't fully grasped the fact that it's changing the nature of the human-computer interface, right? Yeah. When you now, in the very near future, can decide you need some application or program, you can just talk it into existence. Right? By talking to one or more AI agents or superpowered assistants and saying, I need XYZ, right? I'm in Barcelona for the first time and I need a program guide that takes my calendar and my appointments and helps me secure the right transportation and almost acts like a concierge for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to use, this is the profound deal, I'm not going to use an existing app. Like, why should I be constrained to that? I'm going to just tell my AI assistant to make it for me. And it's going to exist. So it's going to be uniquely mine. And I had a very long itinerary to come from Phoenix to Barcelona just because of the way my flight was booked. And I was rushing through Philadelphia airport with a very tight connection window going from one terminal to another. And I needed some information. And I was like, I can't stop running or moving quickly. So I just called up Gemini on my phone and asked Gemini through voice a question. And Gemini came back and then in my headphones told me the answer and the information. I didn't have to miss a beat, right? And that's like a simple example of what is now feasible. And I think it will change. The next generations will be like, of course, why wouldn't we use AI?
Because it's like you're no longer reading a book. You're having a conversation with the book. Right. And I think that's the thing we're all getting used to right now as well.
So that's a really interesting point because I think in back to media, right? A book is a form of media. Think about this notion. I was at what's called a Mindshare event at the Skywalker Ranch a few years ago.
Okay, cool.
And this is hosted by the Advanced Imaging Society. And there was a fireside chat. I can't remember who it was that was up on stage, but he was talking about, he's a producer and a director. He was talking about the fact that his 3-year-old or his 5-year-old was questioning why they couldn't be involved in the story that they were watching on their iPad. And the reality is that's no longer why couldn't you? Of course you could. You can totally interact. But that's this convergence of immersive experiences, games, media, user-generated content, all coming together and changing the nature of what it means to have a media experience. Right? So this is what I'm saying, that these things would not have been possible until now. And we're going to see entire new experiences, products, and therefore businesses and organizations that are stood up to support them. And so it's not just the reshaping of existing industries, it might be the creation of new industries.
Exactly. That's really cool. Now, we're coming to an end. And let's do a bit of future gazing 12 months from now. If we could come back 12 months from now and have this same conversation, Roy, what would you expect to have?
Notebook LM would replace us in the next for the new podcast.
Any predictions? 12 months from now, what do you expect?
I think in the industry of the telco, we will see more and more use cases and implementation of Gen AI going into production.
Yeah,
We're kind of at the end of the experimentation zone.
Yeah,
And starting to work into real use cases on all fronts, right? Automations, customer experience use cases, and things like that. I also expect, by the way, internally in Amdocs that we will see more and more development driven with AI. Today, by the way, very quickly, the developers cannot they cannot imagine how they would have been developed without AI.
Yeah.
It's only for the last year or so, but this is like, but we'll see it accelerating more and more the way that they are thinking and the way that they are developing. And across the board, we will see more and more implementations of Gen AI everywhere as a consumer.
Yeah. Anil?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Roy is saying. I think in the industry, in the telecom industry, and I think this is true for other industries, we will see many, many, many more examples of where AI has been implemented in production with real results, right? I think, Roy, you talked about KPIs earlier, and I think one of the things that we like to talk about is that when you talk to a company about adopting AI, and we obviously do that every day, it's not about what's your AI strategy. It's about how can you use AI to execute your strategy, right?
Yeah.
So the KPIs of your business in telecom, for example, will still be how do I increase ARPU? How do I mitigate churn? How do I increase retention? How do I expand revenue, et cetera, et cetera? Those are still the same, right? It's just that now I have a new set of capabilities and tools to do that more effectively and better. And I think one thing that, hasn't changed is the power of storytelling. So when you have in an industry that has, by its very nature, been challenged to move fast because of the entrenched massive CapEx investments and infrastructure and the importance of the world's communications infrastructure, so you have to be risk averse, which I think works counter to embracing innovation sometimes. I think that the more stories we have of various, and you'll see a bunch that we announced this week, of more organizations, more telecom organizations implementing AI with real value metrics of the ROI or the savings or the improved customer satisfaction or the efficiencies, those will carry across the industry and will lower the barriers to adoption. So I think next year, by this time next year, we'll have seen an accelerated adoption. Yeah. The other thing that I expect will happen is that because of the pace of innovation in AI products and capabilities, that we'll be talking about whole new things that today we don't even know are coming out of the labs. And I think we'll be sitting here talking about how we're going to incorporate those into the industry as well.
That's brilliant. I love the storytelling piece as a marketeer because I don't think human stories will be replaced, but I think it's how the marketing teams tell the narrative of the tangible benefits and productions that we talked about that's going to help propagate it further and further. Yeah, I still don't think the industry did a good enough job with the 5G story.
I think we all need to be good storytellers.
Exactly.
To create the right application, to create the right thinking, to enable from the benefits of Gen AI. It's a good
I think we have to remember that we're not humans in an AI world, but it's AI coming in to empower humans in a human world. Right?
Exactly. That's exactly the approach. Cool. This has been brilliant. We could carry on forever.
No, thank you very much.
But we finish with our quick fire round. Okay. So we like to finish with a bit of fun, get to know you a little bit better. And what I'm going to ask both of you is a multiple choice question, and you're just going to give me your preference. All right?
Okay.
So you ready? This is TGI to go.
Let's go.
TGI to go.
So we'll start with you, Roy. And basically the questions are just randomly generated. So are you a TikTok guy or an Instagram reel guy?
Instagram. I'm following TikTok through my kids, but I'm an Instagram guy.
Yeah. Would you rather eat this evening clam chowder or lobster roll? They are very random, these questions.
Clam chowder.
Yeah.
I would prefer a vegetarian meal.
Okay, that's good. There's always a third option. Yeah.
I should have said YouTube in the prior question.
I had YouTube written down and I crossed it out. Would you rather go to Chicago or Nashville for a weekend away?
I'd rather go to Nashville.
Yeah, bit of music.
Bit of a change of an atmosphere.
Yeah, I would agree. In fact, just this morning, I got a text from a colleague inviting me to Nashville. So it's very timely.
And where are you from originally, Anil? Is it Phoenix?
I've lived the longest in Phoenix, but I grew up I was born in Chicago and grew up mostly in upstate New York.
Oh, right. Okay.
So,
awesome. Cool. Yeah. Sci-fi or drama? If you had to watch a movie this evening, would it be science fiction?
I'm a big sci-fi fan.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not. It's an easy question.
What's your fave?
I grew up in Star Wars.
By
the way, I'm continuing to watch the Star Wars.
Yeah. There you go. Star Wars always wins.
Yeah.
Right. But I remember asking somebody, Star Wars or Star Trek? And they said, Star Trek. And I said, just why? I said, because everyone says Star Wars. And he said, because in Star Wars, the outcome. In Star Trek, they're still discovering. I was like, oh, okay,
that's
interesting. Yeah. Anil?
Yeah, I would. So definitely sci-fi.
Yeah.
I think the Star Wars, Star Trek question is interesting because I'm a big fantasy genre guy too, and Star Wars is really more space fantasy.
Right. Yeah.
And Star Trek, it actually, for us technologists, has been the show that for generations predicted a lot of the future of what I pretty much carry a tricorder in my pocket these days. Right? So I think that's the case. But there are amazing sci-fi shows that have come out in the last several years. The Expanse was one, if you haven't seen.
Right.
If you're into it. The Three-Body Problem, which was a Chinese author.
Right.
And they actually produced a Chinese version of the series, and it just came out on Netflix last year.
Okay.
I think there's some amazing new science fiction out there.
Cool. Great. Well, that's it for today, gentlemen. I've really appreciated both your time. It's been a great conversation to start week 2 of the show. So thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Roy.
Mr. Chris Antlitz from TBR, who's been on the podcast before. He's a good friend of ours and of Amdocs. So, Chris, welcome back to the Great Indoors.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, had a good week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Went quick.
Yeah? Looking forward to getting home?
I am.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's get into it. What did you see this week? What's been the big news for you? The big takeaway that you'll be flying back thinking about?
Yeah, so one of the biggest takeaways I had from the event was that regarding AI. And I noticed that there was meat on the bone this time.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is we're starting to see commercialization of use cases, and we're seeing a lot of thought leadership, and we're seeing actual in the market being utilized, running live sessions with customers or with internal sales staff, and could be marketing staff. We're seeing operators, some of the more operators that are ahead of the curve on adoption. I heard about some pretty sophisticated, multifaceted solutions that they are looking to employ. And actually, Amdocs enables a lot of that for some of these telcos. And then this whole thing about agentic AI, that's a new buzzword, I think, for this MWC.
Yeah.
Last year, it was Gen AI specifically. This year, it's agentic AI. And I heard about that all over the place, including at Amdocs. And it makes sense. I've seen some demos of it. And there's just tremendous opportunity for business outcomes for the telcos. And not just on the efficiency side, but also on the revenue side. And one of the most compelling things that, to me, at least initially, is around offer management and upsell.
Right.
Or even cross-sell of a plan. So if you see the usage patterns of a customer and you see that they are behaving in a certain way with their interaction with their devices, the AI can make a inference around, maybe they should upgrade to this package because it's more suited to their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that is actually pretty compelling, because I think a lot of customers, I don't even think they really understand the full scope of their plans and what the operator actually offers.
Yes.
I think that there's a lack of understanding or awareness. And I think that with the agentic AI and that interfacing conversation, I think is a game changer.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's kind of one of those things we've talked about for years and years. with hyper-personalization and just the old big data and AI days. But like you said, it's happening now in quite a spectacular pace.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And has it surprised you, the pace of the evolution?
Yeah, so the telcos usually move slow on new tech adoption. They are a little bit slower than some other verticals, but honestly, some telcos, I was pretty impressed with some of the stuff I heard about and saw some pretty compelling demos. So I would say that they're not behind per se on this tech cycle for the AI.
Yeah.
But they need to keep going with it. It's a journey, right? They need to keep walking down that journey. And there needs to be an embrace of the technology in the organization, right? There needs to be a level of trust. There needs to be a level of governance. There needs to be a level of making sure that their customers don't feel alienated or that they're not happy with not being able to talk to a person, maybe through a call center, stuff like that. But so far, so good, I think. And there's, like I said, there's tremendous potential across the operator for using AI in various ways.
Yeah. And anything else you've seen at the show plastered on any of the booths? It seems 5G doesn't seem, if we go back 2 years, 5G use cases, 5G, people started talking about generative AI last year. This year, agentic AI is the big buzz. Is there anything else you've seen out there in the halls that's caught your attention?
So there's two other things that are interesting. One is not really new, but the fixed wireless access. I'm seeing a lot more conversation about it, seeing more vendors offering kit to deploy that solution. Various ways operators are thinking about the evolution of that and maybe selling value-added services as a package. Asia's doing a lot of that today.
I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah.
As I met Globe a couple of times this week, and FWA was very much at the top of their agenda. And they were very cognizant of what had happened in the United States that you and I have talked about several times as far as fixed wireless adoption. So you're seeing that now, I wouldn't say packaged or commoditized, but ready to roll out, ready to go and take those lessons into the rest of the world.
Oh yeah, like FWA has been legitimized in a very big way.
Yeah,
globally, I would say. Yeah. Even in fiber markets, we're seeing, like even in China, they're deploying FWA. Right. Even though it's a highly fiberized market, there's use cases that they are bringing into the market, like startups that have a technology that they needs connectivity with it. Yeah. And you have like these different models developing. There's a very dynamic ecosystem in some parts of Asia. Yeah. The second thing that I saw that was really interesting, and that this is an up and coming thing, is the idea of what's the next big device category.
Wow. Okay,
so we've had the smartphone. The smartphone is mature. Yeah. We're not getting much innovation on the smartphones. It's very incremental. I didn't see anything profound here on smartphones. I saw more foldable phones, but that's not a new thing. Yeah. What I did see new was the number of vendors that are bringing AR devices to market, and specifically the glasses. Right. I saw a lot of vendors with that. Like you've seen the Ray-Ban Meta. Yeah. So there's a lot of other vendors that are also dabbling with that. Yeah. And what I noticed is that the form factor is getting smaller and smaller. Right. And the capabilities of the device is going up. So things like battery life is still very limited, but it's improving. The miniaturization of the components, like the sensors and the cameras, even the interface in the lens that your eye is looking at, is getting more sophisticated. Yeah. So, that the AR, VR is going to be the next major device category, and that's going to be multifaceted, right? It's not just going to be for gaming. It's going to be for enterprise use cases, healthcare use cases, various social use cases. Yeah. It's going to be big, and I think over the next 10 years, we could see AR, VR become $1 trillion+ new device category. And that's something the telcos can sell in their stores. Yeah. That's something that people can go to the stores and experience. That's something where the telcos can make adjustments to their network to bring that differentiated experience. You need to have ultra low latency. Mm-hmm. You need to have coverage. Mm. You need to have, and for AR, VR, it's really indoor coverage. You need to make sure you have good indoor coverage. And that's still a limitation today with the routers and things and how the routers are working. But now you have mesh, wireless. You can see tech trends and technology innovations that are kind of coalescing. And we're going to get an inflection point on AR, VR. I would say by the end of this decade, we're going to see that inflection point. It's going to start to take off.
I think it's really interesting that you bring that up. And could it be considered a reignition of the metaverse hype we saw 2 years ago, right? That's fizzled out. I wouldn't say fizzled out, surpassed by the generative AI frenzy of a year ago. So you think that's definitely something that will come back into play?
It will absolutely come back.
Yeah.
And the amount of money that ecosystem could generate is very significant, like on the trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm talking out 10, 15, 20 years, but you're going to get that S curve and you're going to ride that curve in the next 10 years. And it's going to bring a lot of innovation into the market. It's going to bring a lot of dynamism. Mm-hmm. It's going to bring potentially new competitors.
Yeah.
And it's going to bring new value into the mobile ecosystem. Yeah. Because those headsets or other wearable devices, those are not tethered to a wire. Those are wireless. That is a mobile use case.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a big deal.
And it was always when and you and I have had this conversation about fixed wireless access and 5G and where are all the other 5G use cases, and fixed wireless access is predominantly the thing that's come out of 5G. Yeah. Could the reignition of AR, VR is a great, and there's always been speculated as a great use case for 5G because of the low latency, the high frame rate you need, the coverage. Could that then come back into play as a key 5G use case outside of the home?
It absolutely could, but we do need to think outside the box. So, for example, the house might become a base station in the future, and the house might become a mech in the future, a prem mech, where you have, instead of you have your desktop computer with a tower, you would have like a miniaturized data center in your home, like very small size. Like maybe briefcase size or maybe a small rack.
Yeah.
But that has heavy duty computing power in it.
Right.
And you would have some more advanced routing technologies.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 5G. It could be Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Or something else. Maybe some other protocol will be developed.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I think that it's going to be a very vibrant and disruptive and innovative stuff we're going to see there.
Yeah.
Cool. It might change how we think about networks today and how this connectivity is delivered and how it's managed, how we hit those latency rates. I see a future of highly distributed networks. We're still in the centralized phase with cloud, especially. Like, you have data centers in the metro, but you need to go a step lower than that. You need to go to the far edge, right? You need to go out to the endpoint, extend out. And then that also has to interface with the rest of the cloud. And this is stuff that the hyperscalers are all working on, right? They already have some of this stuff available today.
Yeah.
So, but that's a glimpse of what future networks might look like and how connectivity gets into the home at a level and processing capability where you can do something like a fully immersive or a hybrid immersive type of environment.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the beginning of our conversation where, from your perspective, generative AI or AI in general, there's meat on the bone. There's a new type of agentic. Things are moving so insanely quickly right now. With pretty much everyone I've spoken to this week is surprised at what's happened in the last 12 months. This gives us a chance to sit back and say, okay, what just happened in the last 12 months in relation to this? And it has been phenomenal. What do you think could potentially happen 12 months from now in that whole AI space?
So I think we're going to see much more sophistication. We know what the core use case domains are. So care and billing are probably the most implicated.
But even outside of telecoms, just as a technology in general. Yeah.
Oh, for AI specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to see We could see advancements in healthcare, how care is distributed and how it's provided, like optimization there. You might see less resource scarcity. So if you're talking to a sophisticated AI chatbot that has good data, it depends on how good your data is. You could conceivably maybe not need to see a doctor in real life to get certain types of help. And that could be radical change for the healthcare system and how care is distributed and supported. I think that you can also apply that idea of democratizing resource and enabling people to get what they need more efficiently, more cost effectively, and with better outcomes, quite frankly. There may come a point, and I think others have said this, where AI is going to exceed human intelligence. So for example, like I use the doctor as an example, it's conceivable that AI with good data backing it could make better outcomes potentially than going to the hospital or the doctor's office.
Yeah. And how bullish, and again, one of the other conversations rather is the ethical and philosophical. And you've been in this industry a long time, Chris. You've seen plenty of cyclical innovation trends coming. How do you feel in general? Is this the biggest thing you've seen as far as a step change in technological advancement? And the second part of that question is, what are your thoughts on the ethics and the morality of it all?
So people will want to opt in. They will want to because they're going to want those experiences, right? More efficient access to healthcare. They'll want new gaming platforms and experiences. And in order to get those things, maybe different connected car experiences, maybe you have a more sophisticated infotainment system when you're interacting with your automobile. For those things to happen, people would have to opt in, right? You have to give up something, which would be their data, maybe their behavioral habits, to get something. And the question is, what's that balance point? And are you providing so much value to the end customer that they want to opt in and they're comfortable enough with what they have to give up to versus what they're getting?
Yeah.
And that's a individual by individual question. But if you look at smartphones and if you look at ChatGPT today, people have en masse have been willing to opt in for that because they're getting value from it.
And do you worry? I mean, you're an analyst. You do a lot of writing, do a lot of research. Obviously, you're using the tools available to you.
Yeah.
The one sort of ethical question I keep thinking about: the more we offload from our cognition, the more we outsource our thinking to these tools. Do then our mental capabilities start to atrophy as a result?
I would argue that they already are, because have you seen the studies about how smartphone usage is rewiring our brain? And you have seen that.
Yeah, by Dr. Anil, the dopamine deficiencies in
and a broad range of other things.
Yeah.
So there's actually been a lot of studies of the impact of smartphones on people and their cognition.
Yeah.
And how they consume information, and things have become much more instantaneous.
Yes.
And people don't have the same memory capability.
Yeah.
And there's some numbness in some ways of how they're processing information and retaining information.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I think that there's going to be a dependency on AI. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a challenge. But if you think about AI as an augmentation, which is how it's being used today, and likely will be predominantly in the future, where you have a human in the loop, or you have the human that's dialing what they want it to do, like has the control over what it does.
Yeah.
I think that impact that you're talking about might not be as significant, but once we start to rely on the AI for basic needs and even things like researching what product should I buy, like if you're being pushed recommendations, if you're being told when you need something, and the way that people will interact with their world, their lifestyle might fundamentally change from those things. But I think that's further out. but I think we see some glimpses of that today with dependency on smartphones. Like if someone loses their phone, their whole world is thrown up in chaos. Yeah. Like literally everything depends on the phone. And in the future, I think it's reasonable to assume that people are going to, it's going to be the similar way with agentic AI. And actually, I have a different term I use. Agentic AI is great from a business standpoint, but from a consumer standpoint, I think we should think about it as a surrogate.
Okay.
And that's the term that I would like the industry to use, where you have like your personal surrogate who is advocating for you, working on your behalf, your helper. And that I think is a more appropriate terminology from a consumer standpoint. But for agentic AI, from a business standpoint, that makes sense to me. That wording makes sense to me.
But from a consumer perspective, it's almost the notion of a thought partner, like you said, an assistant. And I like the word surrogate, right? As far as, and how much are you relying on it now in your day to day? Because this is an interesting insight I picked up this week from like a year ago. So a year ago, I asked people that question in like 25 interviews. I got 25 different answers back. Oh, I've used it to write a love poem for my wife. Oh, I did a funny skit with my kids. They all had sort of unique things. But what I've noticed this year, and then a lot of people as well felt guilty for using. I don't really need to use it because I'm a really good writer, but I have used it for that. There was a resist, and I don't really. There was a guilt or almost an embarrassment about having to use these tools. What I've noticed here, asking people to say, everybody is using it hard now. They're all in on it. It's improving their productivity. It's improving their lives. There's an acceptance almost in that subset of people or executives that I've spoken to.
Yeah.
Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely.
Or is that how you feel about it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's happening.
Yeah.
People are getting much more comfortable with it. I think definitely seeing that. I use it to an extent. I still value my own research, obviously, because that's my job, but also like on a personal level, like when I'm researching a product or something I'd like to buy, or a trip, a vacation I'd like to take. Yeah, I don't want the AI to make those decisions for me. Let me give you an example. There was a trip that I did last year, and there were a bunch of things that I wanted to do, and I had a list of things that I would like to do ideally, but it required a lot of walking. And what I did is I said, you know what? I usually go on Google Maps and I have to trace where everything is and try and make it so that it's optimized so I can see the most things. So this time I basically copied the list of things I wanted to see. I put it into the ChatGPT and I said, can you build me an itinerary based on these things with
in the right order? Basically. In
the right order from a walking distance standpoint, something along those lines. And it gave me back a pretty detailed summary of what I should do, line itemed out. And I didn't take that and just do it. I took that under consideration.
Right, I see.
That's how I use it today. It's suggestion.
It's advice.
It's advice. But it's trust and verify. So I trust it to an extent, but I also need to go and verify, especially because we know about things like hallucinations and how good is the data that it's using to give me this output. And I want to double check things, but I definitely would use things like that as a starting point, as a guide, supplementing. It does save me time then on the research part. It did save me some time. So that would be an example where I'm using it personally.
No, it is really cool. And to my earlier point, is this the biggest thing that you've witnessed in your career as far as that leap forward? Because it is the stuff of sci-fi in many respects, but
I think so. The smartphone was big. That was revolutionary. AI is revolutionary. I think the next thing is going to be quantum computing.
Okay.
That's going to be the next really big thing. And that has the potential to dramatically redefine medicine. And you're going to get like weather prediction, how to optimize things on an engineering level, how to optimize like hardware. It's going to be a whole nother level of sophistication in terms of reliance on technology to get maximum outcomes. And medicine is especially interesting to me because with quantum computers, I mean, you could do, depending on how good your data set is, right? And that's the the big question. But assuming the data is good, it's conceivable that there could be rapid vaccine development. Maybe, like, for example, for the flu vaccine, they guess the year before what they think the strain is going to be. And then they make the vaccines ahead of time in preparation for that season. The efficacy of those flu shots is usually I think it's in the 40% range on average. I'm pretty sure it's in that range. But why can't it be 90+%? With something like quantum, you might be able to achieve outcomes like that and do like rapid development and get amazing outcomes at scale. That's where things get really interesting. So you have automation, you have quantum computing, all these things are going to coalesce, and we're going to see profound technological advancement in our lifetime.
Cool. Well, that's perfect. Now, Chris, you know how we end the podcast with our quick fire round, and I had a real good laugh doing with you last year, and I think you've given one of the best answers. We'll talk about it afterwards. In this session. So here we go. TGI to go, Chris.
TGI to go.
Lobster roll or clam chowder?
Ooh, clam chowder.
If you could go to the weekend a weekend away to Nashville or Austin, which one would you go to?
I'd probably pick Austin.
Yeah. I was there recently, actually, in December. It is a real.
It's got an interesting vibe.
Yeah, exactly. What is it they say? Keep it weird, Austin. Or
something
like that. Is that their strapline?
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. Connected cars or smart cities?
I would say that's a tough one. I'd say connected car.
Yeah. Are we close? Not just connected cars, but autonomous cars. Because you talked about the cars being on here before. And again, we've talked about it for years. I think the technology is clearly there, but still.
Waymo and some other platforms. I'm going to call them platforms because that's what it is.
Yeah.
They have made rapid improvement in just the last year. I mean, it's getting real.
Yeah.
They're actually doing taxi rides with no person in the car in San Francisco and some parts of Texas, Arizona. Like, this is happening.
Yeah. Okay, you could go on a beach vacation or a mountain retreat. What would you go?
I live near the coast, so I'm going to say mountains to change it up.
But you live pretty close to mountains as well, right?
I do, yeah.
Up in Vermont, I guess.
New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So there's, everything's strategically like an hour or two away, like from the beach, from the mountains, from the big cities. We have Boston, you have Portland, Maine there. It's a good general location if you want to for some variety.
Okay. And the final question, TikTok or YouTube?
YouTube.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You're not a TikTok guy?
No, I like longer form video, actually, and to really get immersed in like the topic versus like the short, quick sound bites.
Yeah.
I'm more of I like the intellectual interaction, if that's the right way of thinking of it, with the content that's on YouTube.
Yeah. The TikTok is the dopamine hit that we were talking about before. Yeah. Anyway, Chris, fantastic speakers here. Thanks for taking the time to come around and conclude this week with us. I hope you have a safe journey back later on today. But thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.
So there we go. What another great episode. Thank you very much to Anil. Great to meet you. Great to see you again, Chris. Also, thank you for taking the time in your busy schedule to swing by to the Amdocs booth and have that fantastic conversation with us. So thank you very much. That was episode 101 as well, for those keeping count. If you haven't seen any of the 100 other previous episodes that I just mentioned, they're all available on amdocs.com/The Great Indoors. So please check out our website for a cornucopia of media, past episodes, etc. for your consumption. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next week for The Great Indoors. I'm Matthew Roberts here in Barcelona, and have a great day wherever you are.